So, hey, good morning. This is KHEA Radio. Just taking the time to tune in. I got Michael Matranga here in studio. I'm going to kick this on the FM. We're going to have some fun. And feel free to ask questions. Share this out. Let me know what you got going on today. This is KHEA Radio, 99.5 FM. Right now it's 11:04 on a Thursday, and I have a guest back in studio once again. I'm going to let him introduce himself and then share everything that he's involved in. We're going to see where this goes.
Oh, my gosh. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Mike Matranga. I am a local resident of Texas City, Texas. Grew up in Lamarck. Went to Sam Houston State. And after Sam Houston State, started working for Galveston County Adult Probation. God bless those probation officers and probationers, and I hope they have a lot of patience. Went to the Secret Service after that, Houston Field Office. Was one of the first 8 agents assigned to Barack Obama's campaign during 2007, 2008. And from there, went on to continue to work in the Houston Field Office through multiple different divisions, and then went to the Presidential Counter-Assault Team and under our Special Operations Division in D.C., then went to Presidential Detail. Then kind of had a little change in agencies, went over to the Bureau of Land Management under the Department of Interior and oversaw the security operations for the Bundy trial out in Vegas with the ranchers who took up arms against the United States government in 2014, which led to a secondary standoff. And then after that, came back to Texas City ISD after the tragic shooting at Santa Fe ISD, May 18, 2018, and put together what was and hopefully will continue to remain as the #1 school security program in the state of Texas and #5 in the nation. And that's kind of it. I've got 2 young daughters and a beautiful wife and a great family, and just happy to be alive, man.
All right. So you have a company, as well, which I've seen some on social media. And what's the name of the company, and what do y'all offer? What do y'all do?
Yeah. So company's name is M6 Global, and what we do is we provide a very holistic approach to security solutions in multiple different verticals or markets. Specializing in law enforcement training, civilian training, the industry, petrochemical industry. We have 19 refineries here. Houston is a great energy hub, oil and gas area. Education is a big one for us. We like to specialize in education due to the experience that we've had there and the success we've had there. There's just multiple different markets. Corporate. I think one of the things that we're seeing a trend now in the United States is workplace violence. And, I think people need to understand that's always been a problem. It's just, I think the pandemic is just bringing some things to light. And so, we have an all-star team, man. I'm super proud of the team that I've put together. I'm a very observant person, and I kind of see where the gaps are in certain solutions that other companies or other municipalities. He specializes in emotional intelligence, and I think that there's this huge stigma with the term mental illness, and I think that a lot of people, after speaking with Dr. Sines, reading his books, I encourage people to read his books. His company's called Applied EQ, out of College Station, but basically what EQ is another term for self-awareness. Right. I think that people need to understand what their triggers are, and learn how to deal with their triggers. And so he's a huge asset to our team. But we've got an all-star lineup, man. We've got White House Tactical Medical Officer Abraham Medina, combat veteran, 4 tours to Iraq. Him and I worked together at the White House, and this kind of all came to fruition. I mean, I've always wanted to have my own company, but bringing in Abe, everybody always says, why did you choose these people, or what made you do this or want to start your own company? And I would say that it's it's years of sitting in groups of like-minded individuals, whether it be at the White House, Secret Service, or White House Medical Unit, or whatnot, and us just kind of chalk talking and thinking that we could solve the world's problems if politicians and politics just got out of the way. And I always told myself if I had an opportunity to really make change and put together an all-star team and a lineup, that's what I was going to do with the best people I felt were the top in their market or in their expertise. And so Abe's on our team, and we're working on some new things from the medical field. After looking at the last couple weeks, we've had a tremendous amount of workplace violence shootings, and there's some things that, from an observer standpoint and from a practitioner standpoint, that we know that we could do better. And this is not a dig at anybody. We just feel like there's things that we could do better. One of the things that we really, really want to touch base on through M6 Global is empowering the people, right? Empowering the citizen and civilian. We rely too heavily on our law enforcement and on our medical sources or resources in those events, right? Which we believe is contributing to unnecessary deaths. And so we're developing a curriculum that would empower the people to be the ones that provide and render aid during those circumstances, so that the law enforcement officers can do their job, and that's to stop the shooting and the killing.
Mm-hmm. So what are some things that, like, a person like myself can do to make sure that I am empowered or trained or know how to assist in the best way possible if something happens?
I think that the biggest thing that people need to understand is situational awareness, right? Well, what is situational awareness? It's pretty common, really. I mean, I would say that everybody has it. They just need to learn how to fine-tune it, right? When you walk into a restaurant, identify your exits, notice your surroundings, who's around you. Is the couple next to you in a domestic dispute, or, when you walked in the building, identify where the restrooms are in the event that you needed to lock yourself in there. And I don't want to create we're not trying to create a society that's living in panic and fear. We're just trying to create a society that's better informed and more aware. So as a civilian, what I would say is take a first aid CPR class, learn how to apply a tourniquet. President Obama, who I served under, I can't remember what year it is. Don't hold me to that, guys. But he, enacted the Stop the Bleed campaign. It's great. Stop the Bleed is fantastic. But what we know is that Stop the Bleed is not going to prevent death in some of those situations. A lot of these individuals, who pass away in these horrific workplace shootings or mass violence shootings, the first cause of death or main cause of death is a gunshot wound to the head. Second cause of death is a torso injury. You can't apply a tourniquet to a torso. So I would say, as a civilian, learn how to be able to pack a wound and assist in providing medical aid. Some people say, well, how do you do that when gunshots are flying? Well, obviously, you're going to practice a little bit of self-awareness and know that if the gunshots are still going off around you, that's not the time to deploy. And we want to be able to teach individuals when it's appropriate to do that and how to apply these more advanced medical techniques. And I say advanced, anybody can do these things. It's not like you're performing surgery. Mm-hmm. You're just sustaining that life until the real professionals are allowed to come in.
So earlier we were talking a little bit about workplace violence, and I guess we still are now, but what kind of qualifies? What's considered workplace violence? And then why is there more? And I believe you said something along the lines of it's always been going on. Now there's just more of a spotlight on it, I suppose. I mean, is that just the media knowing that the numbers will do well, or what do you think?
Yeah, I think that here I am in a podcast, going Facebook Live talking to you, and you're in the media, but I do think that the media really amplifies this, right? For example, 2 days ago there was a shooting in I believe it was San Jose, Agua Dulce, California, where two firefighters were shot. One was injured, the other one was killed by a coworker, and then that coworker then went to his home, set his home on fire, and shot himself and killed himself. I think that these things happen daily. It doesn't matter if it's in schools, if it's in the corporate environment, if it's in, volunteer programs. You have some type of animosity amongst coworkers sometimes. Those things, I believe that if they're not supervised well, and if there's not a plan to address that, or a means to report that behavior, I believe that's how these things kind of metastasize and turn out to be what happened in Aqua Dulce. And so, one of the things we do at M6 Global, we're very data driven, right? Everything that we do is based off of facts. It's not based off opinions. It's based off of facts and data. And then from there, we build our plan, right? Our customized plan for whatever the customer or whoever the customer is. I will tell you that we had a client about a month ago that asked us to come out and do an assessment. And we start everything with a survey. And I always say I don't want the supervisors answering these questions, because we're going to get the company line, right? We want the raw, honest opinions of the employees, and we want it to remain confidential to the administrative staff so that we can get a better idea of the atmosphere within your workplace. And the survey that we provide is a 45-question survey. And in that survey, we dabble a little bit into HR functions. Do you feel like there's a sexual harassment issue at your work? Have you ever experienced that? Do you ever feel physically threatened by anyone at work? And so we went out and met with a client and pushed out our survey to their staff. They have that's 63 people working in their offices. And through that survey, we were able to determine a lot of things that they were not even aware of. In regards to the sexual harassment, there were multiple people who said that they felt like they were being sexually harassed by a coworker or, a supervisor. They weren't aware of that, right? So when that data and statistics came back, they were pretty shocked. Some of the other things that I believe that not only, and it can be applied in any market, any vertical. It doesn't matter if it's schools or corporate industry, industrial, whatever. One of the things that I believe that people make a grave mistake on is not having a plan. Let me ask you a question. If somebody were to come in here today, right now, and open fire, do y'all have a plan?
I'm with you. That's my plan. I got Michael Matranga in studio.
That's only going to get you so far.
So if Michael Matranga was not here, yes. So generally, we do have a plan. There's only supposed to be one door that's open. It's a little different whenever it's a Thursday at our building because there's a food bank. Mm-hmm. So they have the front doors open. Everything else is supposed to be locked. Usually there's one office door that's open. But as far as like right now on a food bank day, there is a lot of people that we aren't familiar with. There's more traffic, right. Some restrooms that we have, and I believe like the protocol is usually someone will ask. I know you got in, but you're Michael Matranga.
that doesn't mean anything. But yeah, so I think the biggest problem is that whether it's schools or whether it's corporate industry, people think it's not going to happen, and they don't have a plan. So in this survey, some of the questions that we ask are does your building have a bomb threat protocol? Do you know where to reunify in the event of a bomb threat or a situation? How do you communicate to your supervisor that you're okay?
Quick question. How often should you refresh some of these things or have meetings to make sure everybody knows these protocols?
You should do that quarterly.
Quarterly.
Yeah. And it's just a refresher. Mm-hmm. That's it. 45-second video. Hey, this is where you're going to go in the event of a crisis. And the situation sometimes dictates a different response, right? But I would say just a refresher quarterly, just to let people know, hey, this is what you're supposed to do, that we're thinking about it. Your safety is important to us. But I would say a yearly review of that, because things may change.
Staff turnover, other
staff
things.
turnover. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you've got to keep up with that. At TCISD, there's probably a lot of employees there now since I left in October that are not aware of some of the some of the protocols that are in place.
How often were you doing that whenever you were there?
We wrote the EOPs, but what we did different than everyone else is we wrote the EOPs and then we put them in flip books, and then we put a flip book in every classroom underneath the light switch. And now whether they did it or not, I don't know.
Yeah.
Is we encourage them, hey, once a week, twice a week, get your flip book, look at a different topic. Bomb threat protocol, child with allergies, shock, heat exhaustion, all these things. Look through those, see what the protocols are: lockdown, lockout, shelter in place, hold, evacuate. What am I going to do? And so we encourage people. It's built on muscle memory. The more you do that, the more you read that protocol or that book that's customized for you and your company or your school, then the better equipped you're going to be when the time comes. The first time that you look at that book shouldn't be when the shots are going off or when you have a problem, when there's a tornado or when there's, whatever that's dictating some type of response, right? So people have to get in the habit of making this a muscle memory thing where you're looking through these books, you're looking through these protocols. We had campus safety monitors at TCISD, and we had a small flip book for them to put in their pocket that they carry around. And I would tell our staff, I can't, schedule a meeting every week to make sure we're going over that, but I would encourage them, flip through your book, look through it, read it. It's going to make a difference in the event of a crisis. That's why when you look at the top 1% in, tactical officers or anybody who's really good at what they do, professional sports, they're constantly practicing. They're constantly reviewing that content. They're going over that multiple times. You can't just, the problem is that we see corporations and schools, they write an EOP because the state says that every 2 years you've got to do an audit now, according to Senate Bill 11. But what you see is they write these EOPs, emergency operations plans, and then they go get stuck on a desk somewhere or on a shelf. And then it sits
2 years,
there, collects dust, and then,
yeah.
In that 2-year time period, look at the turnover rate you've had in employees. How do they know what's going on, right? So people have got to get better at understanding that they're going to perform better in these situations the more that they think through them. One of the things that the Secret Service used to always tell us, because, when you start out as a young agent, you do a lot of standing around, right? And, you're in different areas. Maybe you're in a stairwell, maybe you're standing by a dumpster, maybe you're in a hallway. They tell us, it's kind of manic, but it works, is identify what you're going to do in the event of. Someone comes off that elevator, pulls out a weapon. Where are you going to take shelter? Where are you going to take cover? Do you know the difference between cover and concealment? Concealment means a bullet can still get through there. They may not be able to see you, but a bullet can get through there. Cover means that you're protected behind that, but that doesn't mean you need to make that your home. Sometimes you need to be looking for another place to go next, right? You may have to retreat. And so the better we equip our society with, one, understanding that this stuff is not going away. It's not going away. People need to understand that. If you think that we're living in the 1980s or even the 1990s, where most of the gun violence was occurring on the street, you're wrong. We are going to continue to see these problems because we have a societal change in what people's expectations are of each other. And social media has changed the dynamic of the way that our kids think. I wouldn't want to be a kid in today's society. The pressures of having to be something that you don't either want to be or you're forced to be on social media, whether it be Instagram, Snapchat, Facebook. I know a lot of young kids don't use Facebook, but I wouldn't want to be a kid in today's society. Absolutely not. But the sooner we realize as a society that these things are not going away, and the solution is to better prepare ourselves, whether it be through just situational awareness or whether it be through some type of advanced training, or, companies or schools having better plans and educating those employees on those plans, the better off we're going to be.
So somebody, you mentioned that training, expert training. Somebody had asked that on social media. Is that something that you offer, M6 Global offers?
Yes, we are building a training cadre with professionals from multiple different perspectives. Like I said, we've got Dr. Abraham Medina, tactical medical officer. He and I are working on, and our team as a group are working on a curriculum that is going to be easy to understand, but a more advanced, approach to not only just stop bleeding, but to provide a better sense of medical treatment in those particular instances. We haven't released that curriculum yet because we are working through some things to get that as a certified curriculum. But we're working on that, and yes, we will offer that. We can offer that.
Okay, so we spoke a little bit on Messenger, kind of texted back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
So next week there's something pretty cool happening, I believe. You ran for a position. What position is that, and what takes place next week?
Yeah, so most people know me as the former executive director of security for Texas City ISD. But I ran for Texas City ISD school board member at large and won. And so on Tuesday, I get sworn in as the member at large at TCISD. I'm super excited about that. It's a different role for me. I'm very humble and grateful to accept this position because, I think that, what motivated me to run was I felt like our staff and our students and parents didn't really have an advocate for them. Now, this is not a slight at anybody on the board. I just have a different approach, and I think that my 3 years at TCISD, we've accomplished a lot. Do I have some regrets? Absolutely, I have some regrets. Have I said some things that have made some individuals angry? Yes, I have. But the intent has always been to be, for the greater good. And so, having been an administrator at TCISD, I witnessed and I saw things that needed to change. I feel like, yes, we're there to help the kids and provide a top-notch education for them. But we can't do that if we don't nurture our staff. If our staff doesn't feel supported, then how can they be supportive to our children? And so, there's a reason why TCISD has a high turnover rate. And like I said, this is not a knock on anybody. We've got a new superintendent. From what I hear, since I've been gone, she's doing a very good job of trying to, promote a sense of accountability. And I really commend her on that. I look forward to working with her. I look forward to working with the rest of the administrative staff. But I want to be the advocate for our staff. I just feel like my dad told me a long time ago, if you take care of the people who work for you, they're going to take care of you. And, how can we provide a healthy environment for kids when our staff do not feel heard or supported? And that's what I want to be for our staff. I think that once we get that nailed down and we do that really good, then we're going to provide a heck of an environment for our staff. For our students and for our parents. Mm-hmm. I know that, listen, I wear myself ragged sometimes, answering calls. I try, listen, have I made some mistakes? Have I not been able to make some phone calls or return calls? I literally try to return every single phone call, text message, email, Facebook message. I try to provide some sense of, that I care to that parent. And so does it take a toll on my health sometimes? Absolutely it does. But that's what we signed up to do, as whether we be an administrator or whether we be a school board member. That's what we're supposed to do.
What was that experience like running for that position? I had the opportunity to watch the debates on I-45 Now, and there were some moments where it got a little heated, I guess. But what was that entire experience like for you?
It was a great experience for me. It was the first campaign that I've ever run. I've got a lot of support from Texas City and Lamarck. both of my candidates or both of my opponents were good men. I knew Russell Washington since when I was a kid. In fact, I'm going to give a little bit of bad stuff away that I did as a kid. We were a kid, me and a bunch of kids. We were probably 12 years old, and we went over to Bobby Beach Stadium, and there was a bunch of old signs that used to be, advertisements laid out by the garbage can. We thought they were trash. So there used to be a big hole behind Bobby Beach, and we went and laid them in that hole. We made a ramp, we're like 12 years old. Well, we didn't know it, but we assumed that they were trash because they were laid up next to the dumpster, just being kids. And, there were some very angry people wanting to press charges on us, and that just wasn't okay. And Russell Washington was the officer who handled that case. I was 12, and then I'm running against him as an opponent for school board later. So I've got nothing to say bad against Mr. Washington. We've always had a mutual respect for each other. Anything that I said during the campaign that may have been negative was never directed at him. It was directed at other individuals. And, it is what it is. It's politics. People wear their feelings on their sleeves a little bit. But I tried to stay as respectful as I could. But there's some things that I think the public just needs to know. Regardless if that hurts people's feelings, people need to know what's going on. And as a taxpayer, they have that right to know. And I think that's the problem is we get to a point where in politics, we want to conceal or we want to suppress information. And that's just not the way to approach it. And so, as far as Mr. Juarez, listen, Nelson Juarez is probably one of the nicest guys I know. He always supported me when I was at the school, presenting certain things to him. I've got nothing negative to say against Nelson Juarez. I thought he was a great opponent, a very respectful opponent. I really wish and I really hope that, with me being a board member now, that both of those gentlemen would be willing to work with me, whether it be on a panel we put together or some type of community organization, because I feel like that's the right thing to do. And people say, well, extend an olive branch. There's really no olive branch to extend. We were never at war, so I'm looking forward to it. I'm really looking forward to it. It's a different capacity for me,
Here's a question. This is from Taylor. And if you're watching on social media, maybe you're going back and listening to this on a podcast, you can always reach out, send me a message, and I'll pass it along. But this is from Taylor, who's watching on Facebook. She said, with you on the TCISD board now, how will you push additional security measures with the new superintendent who is not as proactive as former superintendent Dr. Cavness?
Well, I will say that though I commend our current superintendent on trying to encourage accountability for our staff and students and parents, I do have a strong disagreement with her approach. From what I've been told, about 75% of the things that I put in place while I was there, she's done away with. I truly feel like a superintendent doesn't need to be making those decisions. That's just the God's honest truth. And it's nothing personal against her. They have no experience or knowledge in how to handle these things. One of the things that I talk about all the time with people, and I get accused, people always say, well, Matranga spent all this money. Yes, I did, because that's what the people of Texas City voted for in the 2018 bond, was to allocate $6.5 million for, whether it be me or anybody else, to spend to provide what we provided. I didn't choose. Now, I chose the individual softwares or technologies, but I didn't choose what the money had to be spent on. By law, we had to spend it on those technological advancements. If it were up to me, solely up to me, and I've always said this, I feel like there's no technology in the world that's going to prevent someone who's going to want to hurt others. That is a matter of the heart and of the head, right? We have to get to a point where we're mending those things. I said earlier that our society has changed. We're not going back to where we were. our goal is to teach, whether it's staff, students, or parents, emotional intelligence. If I could have spent $4 million of that $6.5 million on emotional intelligence programs, social emotional learning, building resources for our kids to have for after school programs to let them know that they're valued, that they're loved, that society has a place for them, that they're important. That is what I would have spent the money on, but I legally could not. So it drives me nuts when people say, oh, he spent $6.5 million on this, or I had to. That's what the law said we had to spend it on. That's what the bond stated we had to spend it on. So, I will say that I do not have the same philosophy as our current superintendent in regards to security. We'll see how this plays out. But I promise that the citizens that elected me that I will not cower and I will not compromise when it comes to the safety and security of our staff and our students. And, I may be the only person out there on an island that votes nay. I was told by someone the other day, very reliable source, that there's always kind of been this understanding amongst the board that they would try their best to vote the same as a show of unity. That's not going to be me. I refuse. I will not vote that way just because. Here's the thing. The one thing that we have, right, is our voice. And if I'm elected by the people to represent them, I'm going to elect the people. I don't work for the school district. I don't work for the other board members. I work for the people. And if the people tell me they want something, that's what I'm going to vote for. And, this sign of unity, I'm all about unity, but not when it comes to the safety and security and the fiscal responsibility of the existence of TCISD. I will not vote with the board, just as a sign of unity. Won't happen.
So here's another question. This is from Elizabeth. She wants to know what would be the next step if she wanted to talk to you about safety for her company or business. How would she go about doing that?
Next steps would be to go to our website at www.m6globaldefense.com. And there you will see our entire team. We have we've got a world-class team from multiple different markets. You can click on each one of our profiles. You can email us directly. Our marketing firm has done a very good job of building that out, 5 and 2 Marketing. You can click on that link in our profiles, and you can go direct with us. In there also on our profiles, you can see our individual resumes and see that when I say we've had a world-class team, we've got a world-class team. There's also a phone number on our website. You're welcome to do that, and you could submit an inquiry there. Or you can call me direct, 409-599-9975. People always say, man, Mike, why are you giving out your cell phone number? Because I'm an elected official and I'm a business owner. Why not? I want the people to know that I'm here for them, whether it be through, representing TCISD, a parent, a staff member, whatever, or for my business,
Yes. So, you being in that position at TCISD, and then, next thing I saw at least was, you're running for that office. So how did that end? What happened?
With what?
With you being, employed or?
So the policy, TCISD policy states that if an employee runs and is elected, they have to resign. Okay. So I officially resign on Tuesday, the day that I take office. I'm currently still employed. I'm on a leave of absence. But I want to leave of absence. And I want to talk about that here in a little bit, the importance of mental health. And even the strongest of us need help, man. Yeah. If I've got to be the spokesperson that's talking to men or women that says, hey, it's okay to ask for help, then, and you need to take a leave of absence to get yourself right, then so be it. I'll be that person. I think that the sooner we start letting down our guards as a society and start speaking with our heart instead of our mouth, then I think that we'll see some serious change in the United States. And so, so how did it end? It's going to end with me resigning my position on the 8th. And I'm happy to do that. don't have a steady source of income, but M6 Global will provide, along with other things. I'm a firm believer in God, and He's going to provide. He never leads us somewhere that we are not capable of providing for ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah. So mental health is very important. On Friday, and we've done a lot of with a bunch of different nonprofits, but there's one specific, and I'm going to have them in studio tomorrow, Innovative Alternatives, and we produced this video. What they do is they provide counseling for people who are going through things, and they have a counseling center set up in Santa Fe for the Resiliency Center. They have an office, and we got to go film and do some things and interview Mayor Tabor and a bunch of other people. But it's just, there's been like a stigma in the past, and now, people like yourself and others, it's just more easy to talk about. But even still, sometimes people it's still there, like, oh, as a man or whatever, as just a person, I guess it's not the easiest thing to say I need help or know where to go.
Yeah. I really want to talk about this, man. I'm passionate about it. I've had a good life, right? My parents were phenomenal. They're still phenomenal. My father's passed, but my family is so important to me, right? But that doesn't mean that I hadn't suffered some type of trauma in my life, right? Whether it be, divorce, custody issues, significant amount of stress in my career, some of the things that I've seen, those things eventually catch up with you, right? And it's okay to ask for help. 2 years ago, my father died. My dad was my rock, man. I mean, but my mother, my stepmother, love him. But my dad and I had a great relationship. I'm a lot like him. Some people say I'm a little more direct than my dad, but it was unexpected. I mean, he was in bad health, but it was unexpected, and it hit me like a ton of bricks, man. And I got in a very dark place and was, had a lot of pressure to perform at the district and, being responsible for keeping 10,000 kids safe and, keeping everybody happy and, doing what I thought was right, having my moral compass as my guide. It just caught up with me. And then, people always ask, what happened at the district? It's irrelevant. I will say there was nothing illegal that happened on their part or my part. We have a difference of opinion, and a difference of the way things were handled. There were some things that were done that I just couldn't agree with. I'm not a guy that's going to be pushed around. I know my rights. They won't be violated, and I will fight for that. And if I don't fight for that, how can I fight for the rights of anybody else if I don't fight for it for myself? And so don't really want to get into that. But what I will say is that contributed to me having to take a leave of absence, and consulting with my doctors. My doctors determined that, hey, maybe I think you need to take a leave of absence, right? Just for your safety, for other safety, I think you need to take a leave of absence. And the reason why it's so important that I talk about this today, look at what's happened in the last 3 weeks around the nation. Multiple workplace violence shootings. You've had Agua Dulce, California. You had VTA, the transit authority in San Jose. All of those are workplace violence shootings, right? And so the key is to understand that as an employer, it's your job to nurture your staff and to be consciously aware of what's going on, right? So that you don't have these particular types of incidents. And so moving forward, I realized that there was something in me that was wrong. I felt like there was a tremendous divide between myself and new administration, my first responsibility in that role is preservation of life. Whether it be a school board member, whether it be executive director, whether it be CEO of M6 Global. I tell the guys that I work with at M6 Global, our first priority is preservation of life. Money will come. If we do the first thing right, success and money will come. Money is not our first priority. Preservation of life is. And offering things that other companies won't offer. Taking the 1% of these individuals from their various different backgrounds and putting them together in one team. And so, in October, I was told by my doctor, you need to take a leave of absence for yourself, right? And so I was a guy. I mean, here I am, presidential counter assault team operator, team leader, team 6, tremendous amount of stress. Whether it be with the Secret Service or whether it be with Department of Interior, working and having a small bit to do with Mandalay Bay. And then the success we had at TCISD, there's the pressure, the death of my father, all these things just kind of just festered, right? And I never took the time to take care of me. And it got to a breaking point where I was feeling violent, right? But on the same spectrum, I was feeling depressed, violent. I had all these emotions. I felt attacked. I felt underappreciated, which led me to want to feel violent. And that's how these things happen, Gardy. That's how people walk into an office and they kill people, is because employers are not paying attention to their staff, or they don't have resources for their staff, right? Excuse me. So what I'm saying is, people look at me as a strong individual sometimes. I think that's kind of the perception, based upon my experience in life. And I'm proud of that. But what I also know is that, even the strongest of us need help. And it's okay to ask for that. The best thing I ever did was take that leave of absence and know when to say, I need a break. Before, something happens to me or to someone else, I need a timeout. Call for a timeout, people. If you're getting pushed by your employer, or if you're getting pushed by your family or society, whatever it is, time out. Take a time out, right? And you know what? I walked away. I wasn't getting paid. I figured it out. We just have to figure it out. We got to lean on each other. You got to ask people for help, man. And so I started going to therapy. Best decision I ever made in my life. Best decision. Other than marrying my beautiful wife and having great kids, best decision I ever made in my life. It grounded me. It brought things back down to reality for me. It made me understand that there's some things in life that I can't change, that I need to be more compassionate, that I need to be more understanding, that, but this is why, like, if you look at even, it's law enforcement, there's a high rate of suicide in law enforcement. Military, 22 soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines kill themselves, and Coast Guardsmen kill themselves every day due to the pressure. There's got to be a way that people have the courage inside of them to say, I've had enough, I need a break, I need help. And so I will tell you, at M6 Global, whether it be a corporate office, whether it be a school, whatever the market or vertical is, our first priority is to identify the problems within your staff and provide resources for them, right? You got to have a healthy staff. You got to have a healthy individual in order to have a healthy work product, right? Mm-hmm. So sorry I got off on a tangent, but I'm super passionate about this, and people say, God, Mike, I can't believe you're so transparent about, your depression. I think all of us are depressed in our own little ways. So don't be afraid to ask, So do I have good days? Do I have bad days? Of course, we all do. It's how you deal with them. And that's where emotional intelligence comes in, is identifying those things within yourself and then having solutions for those things.
Here's another question that came in on social media. They want to know if you can and how would you bypass administration to put our children's safety as a number one priority. Is that possible?
Well, I will tell you that, there's 7 board members. I'm the member at large, doesn't carry any more weight than the others. I will tell you that, I'm just one person. I'm one vote. There has to be 4 votes in order to have, pass whatever resolution or whatever it is. I will tell you that, and I think people know this from me, I will not hold back on what I need to say. I will make public statements if I need to make public statements. I will inform parents if something is unethical, immoral, or illegal. I will not be the person that's going to hide or suppress information. There's a lot of things that go on, not just at TCISD. I tell you what, one of the greatest threats to our children in schools, and this is not just TCISD, so I don't want anybody at TCISD to think that this is just a problem here. This is a problem throughout the state of Texas and throughout the nation. Funding is tied to discipline. You want to make a difference? Contact your congressman, contact your senators, contact your state reps, and tell them that discipline cannot be directly linked to funding. What I know, people can argue with me all day long. Even the Tech City ISD administrative staff, they can argue with me, but they know I'm right. Myself and Craig Straw, who was here with me last year, we wrote a $2.2 million grant that went to the Department of Education. In that grant, we had to supply disciplinary records. Through that process of sifting through all of these disciplinary records, we were able to determine, and I don't know if this is intentional, so please don't take this the wrong way, but we were able to determine that there were aggravated disciplinary issues. Let's say it's an assault, right? Assaults, terroristic threats, these things that were reported into what we call Skyward, which is our student database. And then you have your PEAM system that goes to the state, where you have to report to the state. There were incidents that, in my opinion, as a security professional, and this is what separates me from a superintendent, okay? Because I've done it for real, right? There's practitioners and then there's theorists. I would never tell a superintendent how to run a school or how to educate a kid. But they shouldn't tell me how to protect people either. And I know that data and intelligence is the first step of making a difference. And so we would have incidents in that process of gathering that data to submit to the Department of Education for this $2.2 million mental health grant, which 3 of our board members voted against, by the way. In that data, we were able to determine multiple students who were on what we call the pathway to violence at the Secret Service. Is this pathway to increased behavior, each time becoming more violent. We were able to determine that in our system, they were coding it as a code of conduct violation, not for what it was. So we get in there, we're like, code of conduct, code of conduct, code of conduct. Then we go into the narrative, and it's like, oh, this person assaulted this person, punched them in the face. They stabbed this person with a pencil, and now they're in handcuffs. And it's like, wait a minute. Aren't we supposed to be proactive in this matter? Why are we just now finding out about this kid when he's in handcuffs when we have all of these incidents? And I specifically reported this and said, we have to get the data correct. The data is what's going to put these individuals or these children on our radar, not in a punitive manner, right? People think, oh, you just want to be punitive, you want to discipline. No, that's not what I'm saying. The last thing I want is any kid to be in handcuffs. That's the last thing we should be doing. Absolutely, last thing. What I'm saying is we have to have accurate data so that we can identify the kids that are in crisis so we can help the kid and the family. It's more important to bring in the entire family nucleus. Not, you can help the kid all day long, but if you're not providing some assistance to that family, you're just wasting your time, right? So what I'm saying is the greatest threat, I'll repeat it again, is inaccurate data, whether it's voluntarily or involuntarily, the data's got to be correct. Has to be. There's got to be a method and a mechanism for us to identify these kids based upon behaviors, because what I know is behaviors don't lie. People do, right? And so when I made that point to our superintendent, there was essentially if we report it the way you want, we're going to lose funding. We've got to do something about that.
So you mentioned there was that $2.2 million grant you and Craig Straw wrote for mental health, and some board members, I guess, voted against it. Is that part of the reason why you think funding?
Well, no, I don't think we have a funding issue at all. I think we have a priority issue. I will say that we were denied the grant. The board did not vote down the grant. The Department of Education denied us the grant.
Okay.
But with that proposal, and I've sent this over to Director Straw and to other administrators since I've been gone, because I still would get emails, because we hired a company called Resource Associates to help us write that grant. It was 86 pages. We worked on that for months. And I'll argue with anybody in administration that says they know the data better than I do. They don't know. I know it. And you can't tell me that discipline is not linked to academics. Let me give you a couple statistics. We have one elementary school campus that is rated an A. Well, we did last year. I don't know what the rating. There's no doubt there'll be an A again because they have good leadership. Do you know how many? I want to say that how many in-school suspensions they had? ISSs at that elementary? 16. Right?
All a whole school year?
Whole year. 16. You know how many out-of-school suspensions they had? 2. Okay? I'm not even going to say the elementary campus, but we have another elementary campus that has like a D or an F rating. How many in-school suspensions do you think they had?
It's probably like 10 times.
No. 400 and something.
Oh, wow.
Right? There's a reason why this is a D or an F-rated campus and this is an A-rated campus. It starts with leadership. It starts with community resources. It starts with informing people of what's expected, how your child should behave. And if you need help, ask us. Let's help you. Let's help the family. Right? So getting back to the board members, they didn't vote against the grant. They voted against me hiring a licensed psychologist to work with the security department on a day-to-day basis to sift through this data, to correct the data, to identify these students who need mental health resources, emotional intelligence resources. Maybe they just need a blanket to sleep with at night. Maybe they need new shoes on their feet. Maybe they need a meal in their stomach. That was the intent of hiring this individual. And 3 board members voted against it because they said they didn't want to spend the $100,000 or couldn't justify spending the $100,000 on this particular position. That's a disgrace. That's a disgrace. What that is either they just didn't want to do it because I was bringing it to them, or they don't understand the concept, or they fall into that stigma of we don't need a mental health person. School counselors are not mental health counselors. Most school counselors are academic counselors that are doing double duty. I proposed in that grant, I'll be happy to share it with you, that we train every school counselor that is an academic counselor in mental health as well, certified mental health counselor, providing a force multiplier for our kids. And they voted that down.
So here's another question. They said, how can we get more people to stand up and speak out like you? Honesty and integrity has to be a priority. So how can we get people to speak up? But do you think that you speaking up, like you mentioned, maybe they were denying or voting no because you are so prone to speak out?
Listen, there are certain individuals in our community that don't like me just simply because, listen, I have my own faults. I know that my approach is not always the best or accepted well by everyone. But I will not allow someone to be denied a resource or to be provided with the absolute best safety and security and education because I didn't speak up. It's my duty. I cannot, change the morals, values, and ethics that my parents instilled in me. It's not in my DNA to run. And so I would tell people that there's a way to do it. One thing that we won't tolerate is parents coming up there and cursing out our staff, being unprofessional. I would tell you, parents, if you want serious change and you don't have the voice, document everything. And I'm the best at that. Document everything. I don't delete emails. I don't delete text messages. I don't delete anything. And, sometimes that's what you have to use is documentation to articulate your point. And so, to encourage others, I would just say, if you're the best advocate for your kid, you're the best advocate for your community, don't rely on anybody else to do it. You have to do it. Be the person that others see in you, and it will provide an enormous sense of self-gratification knowing that you did everything within your power to do what was right. I don't care about politics. I don't care about Republican. I don't care about Democrat. I don't care about who's educated, who's not educated. If you've got a good idea, you've got a good moral compass, let's hear it, man. Let's work together.
What are some things that you changed your thoughts on before you started at TCISD to now, and has that prepared you for this position you're taking next week?
Yeah, it has. I catch a lot of slack, and I caught a lot of slack during the campaign, man. I have people always view me as being like some staunch Republican conservative. Be quite frankly, the hardest thing that I have to deal with in regards to politics is, who's right and who's wrong. Sometimes they're both right, and sometimes they're both wrong, or vice versa. So right. I'm really kind of in the middle, right? But I think the way that I talk, people always assume that, he's way crazy right. No, that's not me at all. Social justice issues, marriage equality, all those things, I'm all for that, man. The Republican Party would never lose another election if they came around on social issues. And I kind of got off topic, but you asked about what are some things that's changed my perspective. I will tell you that the greatest regret I have ever, the biggest regret I have in an interview or being documented is making the statement in the Texas Observer article. I want to say it was back in 2018, 2019, in the article titled "The Wolf is in the Hen House," which was taken from my testimony at the state Senate, is that I believed that the school to prison pipeline was a liberal bullshit philosophy. Sorry about my language, but that's exactly how they quoted it. And I've said time and time again, I caught all kinds of slack during the campaign, but it's always from people who don't understand me. They've never had a conversation with me. They take what they read, they take it out of context. But I will say that's one of the greatest regrets I have, because that was early on when I got there, right? You got to understand, I wasn't in the education industry at that time. I had a mission. I'm very mission oriented. I'm very mission driven. And at the time I wasn't aware, but there absolutely is. Let me talk to you about that for a second. You want to talk about one of the things that I'm going to do first. Parents, I need your support. You heard it right here. I need your support. When we talk about school to prison pipeline, I don't think it's necessarily directed at any particular race, though our African American students suffer the greatest from it. What I know, having been an administrator and dealt with the discipline, dealt with the law enforcement side, is that we have archaic policies in place at TCISD. And this can probably be applied anywhere in the United States. For example, we get too consumed as school board members and as administrators with things that don't matter. We live in 2021. Kids are all about self-expression. I relate, or I attribute what we're seeing right now in 2021 to what happened in the 60s with, free living, self-expression, all that stuff. We're living in a digital society, right? Sometimes the only thing that's providing some of these students a sense of identity is the ability to have pink hair or have rips in their jeans or dressing the way that they want to dress because it's part of their identity. One of the things that I'm going to be proposing that we look at right away, because I know that this contributes heavily to our numbers. Texas City ISD has some of the worst discipline rates in the state of Texas. We're in the top 5, right? What I know is this, because of the data, is that if we remove the hair color issue, here's my thing. If you've got a kid with pink hair, but he or she is sitting in a classroom and learning, and they're getting good grades and they're behaving, who cares? Who cares what color their hair is? If you got a kid that wants to wear ripped jeans as part of their identity and they're behaving, doing what they're supposed to do, they're respectful, who cares? As long as it's not exposing in a genitalia, who cares? But the problem is, and what I've seen and I've experienced myself, is as an administrator, we tell our staff, enforce the dress code, blah, blah, blah. Staff gets so tied up in trying to enforce irrelevant policies, and then when they enforce them, they're not supported by the administration. Then the staff then breaks down, is like, I'm not going to continue to do this anymore, right? Because they're not feeling supported by the administration who's told them to enforce these policies. And then you got to take into consideration, how much time are they wasting by enforcing policies that are irrelevant? It's ridiculous. So that has to do with, 1, the decline in staff morale. 2, it makes the kids feel like they're always being attacked, right? I don't care what color their hair is or if there's rips in their jeans, as long as they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. That allows us more time in the classroom, more time for instruction, and it cuts down on the number of discipline rates or arrests, because literally, this is no kidding, I've seen kids where we have a staff member, or even myself, I would never say this, I have personally experienced this. Hey, young man, need you to pull your pants up, or you've got a rip in your jeans. Man, F you. Or it turns into an altercation, which didn't need to happen in the first place. He or she's walking to class like they're supposed to. Let them go to class.
Also, it kind of gets them used to being singled out, or like, hey, I'm getting in trouble again over this, and then that kind of builds up, and then you can potentially become immune to it, I would assume, after a while. Like mentally, it'll mess with you.
Yeah. I guarantee you this. I'm going to say it right here. I guarantee you, if we do away with these archaic policies, 1, it will increase teacher morale, staff morale, and 2, it will increase student morale because they won't feel like they're being attacked. And lastly, it will decrease our disciplinary rates by, I would say, 30%. I'm just throwing out a random number, but I would say 30%. How's that not a win for us? So that's kind of how I feel.
So right now, if you're just taking the time to tune in, I'm talking to Mike Matranga with M6 Global. Next week, taking a pretty big position. It's the Texas City ISD. Is it board member at large?
Member at large.
Member at
large. So
large.
I represent Lamarck and Texas City.
Lamarck and Texas City, and I feel like, we've been talking for over an hour, and we could probably
I'll stay here all day.
Another couple of hours. But is there anything else specifically that we wanted to talk about today?
Man, I think that I think we covered a lot. I'd be happy to sit and talk as long as you need me to.
Okay.
But I don't want to bore the listeners. But I really wish that we could encourage people to ask more questions. I really like the question and answer. But we can talk about anything from politics, the national climate. We can talk about cybersecurity, which I feel is going to be the next wave of warfare in the United States. Look at what's going on. We had a Colonial Pipeline that was subject to ransomware. 8 hours, they were paid $5 million. There's a whole lot of threats. There's a whole lot of things that we need to do as a community, as a nation. I believe that people need to stop listening to some of their higher elected officials and start realizing that the only difference between a moderate Republican and a moderate Democrat is really just the name. That we have a lot of common similarities, and I think that the true power of America truly resides within the people. You've got the far crazy left, you've got the far crazy right, and then I would say 15% on each, and then you've got 70% of Americans who just want to live, man.
Everybody else
who just wants to be happy, who wants to be happy, who wants to be prosperous. They want to provide for their family. They want to go to church. They want to worship the way they want to worship. They want to, just be happy and enjoy life. But I think that we let the powers that be separate us. And, I always tell people this all the time. We talk about unity. The greatest unifiers in the United States were killed, and listen, I'm not a conspiracy theorist at all. I don't want anybody to think that, right? But you got to look at, and you got to give some credit, to that. Like, look at Martin Luther King. Nobody cared what he was doing when he was walking and marching with just African Americans, but it wasn't until later when he started marching with, white folks and African Americans, and there was a sign of unity, that it became a real problem for the powers that be. And I'm not anti-DC, I'm not anti-government. Do not twist that. I'm not. I am all about promoting, electing the average everyday citizen that understands what we go through. You look at our past couple presidents, with the exception of President Obama. As a registered Republican, I don't care what anybody says. The guy was great. I didn't agree with all of his things that he did, but I thought he was great. He had some class, brought some class to the presidency. I didn't particularly care for Trump, but I liked some of his policies. I thought he did a good job with the economy, with our military. He established a little bit of what I would say. Some testicular fortitude that I thought we had been missing for a while. But, you look at Martin Luther King, deceased because he was unifying people. Look at Medgar Evers, deceased. Look at JFK, RFK. People, when I say this, people are like, what? They look at me all kind of crazy, like sideways. Who one of my, I maybe this is why I'm the way that I am. I got hooked on Malcolm X when I was 16 years old. I did a report on Malcolm X when I was 16. The dude had so much passion, man, right? I think that his opinions and his views were very skewed one way or another with the Nation of Islam. And I really can't speak on that. I don't know. I'm just going based upon the research that I've done, right? But he didn't become a problem until he went to Mecca and realized that the hate that he had been taught about other nationalities or races was just hate. Then when he went to Mecca and he saw that there were, Hispanics or white people that were also Muslims, he came back with a different perspective and then started to align with Martin Luther King. And then he ends up deceased. And so what I'm telling you is when the 70% of us start really uniting and putting aside that Republican status or that Democrat status and look at what really unifies us instead of separates us, that's when we have real power in the United States. And when we stop electing generational politicians, we stop electing billionaires that don't have any idea how hard it is to put a kid through college or to provide for a family. I always ask people all the time. I mean, listen, I was a Secret Service agent for a long time. I always ask people, why do you want this individual as your elected president of the United States or congressman or whatever? When's the last time they drove a car?
They don't have to. Yeah, they get
exactly.
Get around. Yeah.
So how are they going to tell us as a society what we need? Why do we keep electing these people? Where's the citizen servant? Where are the Gardy Garcias, the Mike Matrangas? Why are we not getting elected? Because it takes big money, right? And with big money comes influence. The people are the power in the United States.
I think being open to, being taught something, it's ingrained in you, and then realizing and having an open mind to be like, maybe I was wrong. Maybe what my parents showed me wasn't the only way. There's two ways to do something, or more than one way to do it, or just being open,
You have to be open. You got to have an open mind. I've had people, it's no secret that I want to run for higher office. Listen, this is so crazy, right? It's not crazy, but people think it's crazy. They think, oh, Mike's just talking crazy. No, I want to be the president of the United States because I know that I could represent average people just like us, the middle class, better than any of these guys. I know that. You could too. And so I encourage our staff, our students, anybody, if you've got a dream, do it, man. Do it. If that's what you want to do it. Maybe I'll never get to that level, but maybe Congress, maybe Senate, I don't know. Because we have to have average everyday Americans who've lived the middle class life, that understand families, that understand struggle, that are willing to put aside partisanship for the greater good. I mean, a good idea is a good idea, right? It doesn't matter if it came from the left or the right. You can't say that everything that the Democratic Party does is bad. You can't say that everything that the Republican Party does is bad. But what I will tell you is the party that comes together and is more in the middle and that aligns himself with that 70% will be the party that will never be beat. And, I don't know what the future holds for me. I really am looking forward to M6 Global really taking off and being us providing resources to people that need them. But as far as politically, like I said, I've had individuals call me that know my intentions that are either like, hey, man, you might want to cut down on the anti-Republican talk. It's like, regards to what? Well, this issue. Well, they're wrong. Yeah, but you can't say that. Yes, you can. Wrong is wrong. Right is right. Bottom line, I don't care if you're Republican or you're Democrat. Yes. When we start electing people like that, that's when we'll be super successful, man.
All right. So here's another question that came in. It said, we cannot make fathers and mothers active in children's lives, but how can we get more mentors for kids? Absent father homes are 84% more likely to go to prison. So how can we combat that?
I think that you're 100%, whoever that was that asked that question, they're 100% right. You can't force parents to do what's right or absent parents to be there. Maybe their, mother or father is in prison. I think that we have to get back to providing community resources. Big brothers, big sisters. Why don't we see more of a footprint of them in our schools? Where are the mentors? Where are average Americans like us? Where are they? I know that this is a fast-paced world. Everybody's trying to just survive. I get it. But what we don't understand sometimes is that if we're not feeding the youth what we need to feed them as far as morals, values, ethics, and letting them know that we love them, then that child is going to turn out to be something that we don't want or I would say don't want. That's the wrong choice of words, but that's going to be a child that is a lost child that didn't need to be, right? So the question is, how do we do that? I think that we need to identify these problems, that we need to identify a means to fund them, right? And we need to create community resources. One of the things that's so sad to me, when I was a kid and growing up in Lamarck, like Little League Baseball, it was a big thing, Bobby Beach Stadium. But I will tell you, when I talk about societal change, this is just my perception. Listen, you can take it or leave it. Maybe you agree with me, maybe you don't. But my perception is the fact that parents don't want to let anyone else discipline or reprimand their child. I'm not talking about physically, but, you go to, when I was a kid, you're out playing in the street, you're on the baseball field, you do something you shouldn't do, and there's an adult around, that adult would correct you. There's my
Just say like, hey, don't do that.
hey,
Y'all get away from that.
Y'all
It's okay.
knock that off.
Yeah.
Yeah, hey, knock that crap off. But now you do that, and parents want to immediately throw up hands and want to fight you. Don't talk to my kid like that.
Yeah.
Oh, hold on a second. I think we need to take a step back and realize that it takes a village to raise, these children these days. Listen, I know my kids aren't perfect. My kids are screwing up out in public. I'm telling y'all right now, don't put your hands on them, but get them in line, and then call me and let me know. I would appreciate it. I expect that. We've gotten away from that. That's how we solve this problem, and then we've got to have resources. There's nothing for kids to do in this community.
You grew up here. I grew up here too, and I interviewed Keith Bell, mayor of Lamarck, on Tuesday, and this is something even when he was campaigning, and he's still following up with it, saying encouraging local businesses, even like KHEA or whoever. If you're a local business and you open a spot for an internship for the summer, hey, pay some kids or let them do it for free. Let them learn a skill. And they're opening up. They got a grant for a city internship for teenagers, which I think is great, and I love it. And he had even asked me, hey, do you know any local business? I was like, yeah, I know some boxing gyms that would be good for these kids to have an opportunity to go train. And there's great people here. So I think that's a cool thing that Keith Bell, the city of Lamarck, and that they're implementing.
Yeah, I'm really excited that Keith Bell was elected. I know he's been on the commission for a long time, and I tell you what, man, I'm super impressed with the way that he's communicated with the community. I think he's done a fantastic job. I really commend him on that. I think that Lamarck is going to be thriving within the next 5 years. I truly believe that. They've got the right leadership. He's got the right mentality. Businesses will be moving into Lamarck. I mean, League City's built up. Everything's moving south. And so, to answer that individual's question is, I think we've just got to find a way to create community resources. We have to have a better understanding that it takes a village. It's so cliche to say, but it truly takes a village to raise a child. We have so many things now that prevent our kids from being productive members of society. I truly feel like one of the greatest and worst things ever invented was the internet. It's amazing, or social media. We talk about reality TV. When did we start seeing some of these issues occur in our society? Go back to what's the MTV had that what was that show
where they were all in the same
Real
house?
World.
Real World, yeah.
Yeah, far from the real world.
Right.
But the problem is we've had a couple decades of kids being raised in what they perceive to be the real world. It's nothing like the real world.
It was drama, ratings. They're trying to instigate it, personalities to get the fireworks for the marketing dollars.
And that's what I talk about. I would hate to be a kid in today's society. You talk about bullying. When we were kids, you go to school, you maybe had somebody picking on you or whatever, you handled it. In my day, we would, usually we'd handle it with our fist. And I'm not encouraging violence, but sometimes that,
it's what it was.
It's what it was, and you shake hands and you move on, and it is what it is. Nowadays, kids cannot get away from it. They are constantly plugged into social media, whether it be Snapchat, Facebook, Instagram, whatever. And they're being forced to either behave in ways that they don't want to because they live in a world of likes or views. How many views did I get? How many likes did I get? What's my status? How many followers do I have? Everybody wants to be an influencer. You watch this idiot Jake Paul who's thinking he's a boxer. I can't wait till somebody knocks his head off. But that is not reality. It's not. But that's the world our kids live in. Yeah. If someone's bullying them, they can't get away from it. My kids have suffered. Listen, it's not easy being the child of Mike Matranga for multiple reasons. But, we had some kids that were messing with my kids this past year. And, the kids come home and they tell us about what's going on and we try to resolve it. But then it just kind of spirals. It just spirals with that. It's constantly, people that are sending my kids messages and I'm like, listen, turn off the phone. In fact, let me have it. Let me have that phone and I put it in the safe. And then I'm like, just take a deep breath. Let's go for a walk. Let's calm down. You got to disconnect. So any other questions?
Yeah, there's one more.
All right.
I think that may be
our last
what
one
we have for the time. Okay, this is from Chris. He said, what are your thoughts in placing disruptive students in alternative schools versus keeping them in mainstream classrooms and holding them accountable as they did, it says like 30 years ago?
Yeah, I will say that I do believe that there's a place for alternative schools in our modern society, but I will tell you that from my perception, a lot of these kids maybe don't need to be in an alternative school. Maybe they just need that redirection. But on the same hand, I think that it's hard for individuals to understand what staff and students really go through when you have a kid that is so disruptive that it's it's affecting the educational value to the other. Let's say there's 24 kids in the class. You've got one or two kids that are just completely out of hand, that won't sit still. 95% of the teacher's attention is going to those two kids, and that's not fair to the other kids. So, I do believe that alternative schools have a place in society. I think that we've got to get better at, how we send those kids or when we send those kids. I think maybe I think instead of an alternative program, I think alternative programs are more for children that have committed serious offenses, terroristic threats, assaults on other individuals. That is what I view an alternative school to be. I would personally like to see an alternative to the alternative school, meaning if you've got a student who maybe has a behavioral issue, or they have an issue with learning how to control their emotions, I would like to see us have an alternative to the alternative school where you go and you're taught how to identify those things that are going to be your triggers. We provide guidance and counseling and resources. It's like sending a kid to a prison when you send them to the alternative school. I'm not down with that, really. I mean, there's some kids that are there that don't need to be there, but on the other hand, I mean, how do you teach the other 23 kids if this one or two kid is being so disruptive that they can't get an education? It's not fair to them. But just sending kids to the alternative school that I think there has to be a serious grievance, a threat to a teacher, a threat to a staff, to a student, acting upon any of those particular types of, threatening behaviors. But kids that just are disruptive, there's got to be a secondary alternative for that. They don't need to go to the alternative school. I don't know what that is or what that looks like. I'll be happy to work with individuals, any professionals out there that have solutions to providing an alternative to the alternative school that's more behaviorally centered rather than administratively. That's like a have to go there. If you got a kid that's hurt somebody, you got to send them there, right? I get that. Mm-hmm. So I hope I answered that question. I don't know if I answered it completely the way they wanted.
I believe that you did, and it seems like maybe a psychologist or somebody on staff at the TCISD would probably be able to help implement some of those things.
we kind of went down that path.
Yeah.
Listen, man, I tried, dude. I mean, all you can do is try. I mean, we had, right. And this is what's sad, man, is the individual that I had, and she's gone now. I can say her name. We had an individual at Texas City High School, which I truly loved. Her name was Tamara Jones, African-American female. My intention was to, people. I had somebody question me the other day about this. I said, we've got to get people in place that look like some of our students. Somebody got all offended. Well, what does that mean? What do you mean by that? This is a white individual. I mean that we have a high rate of discipline amongst our African-American population. We need to understand that, different, ethnic groups don't necessarily respond to other individuals that may not look like them the way that they would. That's common sense. That's nothing offensive. I didn't mean anything offensive, but it's the truth. And so I was going to hire Tamara Jones for that because she's amazing. And, the problem is she's resigned. She resigned this year. We lost one of the greatest assets we had in the district. I just saw yesterday another one of our greatest assets, Christina Cabness, resigned and is going to another district. What is going on? Why do we have over 100 resignations?
Wow. That's a lot.
It's a whole lot when you've got 850, 900 professional staff and you've got more than 10% that are leaving on an annual basis.
And I mean, and also it kind of depends, like you said, like she's going to another district, or like if you're getting out of the field altogether, like, hey, I'm going to pursue something else, family business, anything else. But if you're just like going to other districts and, hey, that looks like it would be a better fit for me, that's a little.
They don't feel supported.
Yeah.
Do you know how many teachers have contacted me since I won my election? Is like, thank God. Listen, I don't have all the answers, man. There's a whole lot of expectations for me. I just want to be their advocate. I want to keep good people. Our kids need to see the same face every year. They need to have that sense of normalcy. When we have that high turnover rate, it does no one any good, man. The question is, what is our administration? Are we asking them? My wife taught at Texas City ISD. She, listen, I'm going to say this because I'm not an employee there anymore. I'm an elected official. My wife taught in Lamarck. My wife taught in Dickinson. She taught in Calvert County, Maryland, which was ranked in the top 10 in the nation. She taught in Las Vegas, which is Clark County, which is ranked number 48 in the nation. Then she came to Texas City, and she said that it was the worst place she's ever worked because she didn't feel supported. She felt like there was disparate treatment, and she didn't feel valued. My own wife left. Do you know how many teachers have reached out to me in the last 2 months with the same story? My question to our administrators, our superintendent, and to our HR person is, what are you doing to fix this? My wife filled out an exit interview. Never got a call. She laid it all out. Never got a call. What are we doing to fix that? It's your job. Do your job.
Mm-hmm.
So
right now, I'm talking to Michael Matranga. It's 12:32 on a Thursday. My name's Gardy. This is KHEA Radio. I'm on here every day talking to really cool individuals, and I thank you for coming in. Is there any final closing thoughts you'd like to leave us with?
You know what? I'd just like to say, I haven't made an official statement yet regarding my election, but those that supported me, I really appreciate it. I had so much support. Barbara White, Pam McNeil, Tara Subnosky, my family, Abel Garza, Otis Carroll, just a host of individuals. I hope I'm not leaving anyone out, but I really appreciate the support. And to those that didn't support me, I hope that that you understand my heart after seeing this interview. I always encourage, healthy, constructive conversation. If there's something that I'm doing that you don't like, or maybe you just need some clarification on, I'm always approachable, man. I know it sometimes feels like I'm not, but send me a message on Messengers. Call me, text me, email me. Let's meet for coffee. I've agreed to meet, and during this whole process, I'd agreed to meet a couple people at the Art of Coffee in Lamarck. I went 3 times to meet 3 different individuals, and they never showed up. I mean, I can lead you there, but I can't make you drink that water.
Drink the coffee. Go meet for the coffee. It doesn't hurt to go meet somebody. Yeah.
So my parting remarks would be that thank you for electing me. I hope that you see the true passion and intent that I bring. I know this is not going to be easy. There's no ill will towards anyone at the district. I know that there's some questions regarding that. I spoke to the superintendent this morning. It was a very professional and very nice conversation. And I really look forward to just being transparent with people. And I hope that we can move forward as a community, both in Lamarck and Texas City, for the greater good of our students, our staff, and our parents. And, if anybody needs, I got to throw this in there, if anybody needs any type of security consulting from emergency operations planning to, individualized, customized plans to a full vulnerability assessment to, emotional intelligence, medical plans or medical training, crisis communications. If you're a company and you don't have a crisis communications plan, we can cover that. If you need mental health services or emotional intelligence services, we can cover that. If you need advanced medical training, we can also cover that. So if anybody needs us, look at us at m6globaldefense.com. And I would like to give a special thanks to our teachers, our staff members, because it's not just about teachers. It's about the custodian. It's about the maintenance person. It's about, the folks that are in the business office that are writing those checks, that are crunching those numbers that go unappreciated and unnoticed. So I would like to give a serious thank you to all of the staff at TCISD. It feels like this has been a 2-year school year because of the pandemic. Some of these administrators did not get a break, myself included, did not get a break from last year to this year. And they're tired and they deserve this time off. So thank you to our entire staff. And thank you for having me. I'm ready to come in whenever you need me.
Seriously, anytime. And hopefully
anytime.
You can talk about the M6 Global and anything else coming up. You know how to get hold of me.
Yeah, I'm ready when you are, buddy.
This is KHEA Radio, 99.5 FM.